In the center of a distant galaxy, among star nebulae and unknown planets, the source of the planet Tenera, a place where light was rare and the darkness hid secrets and wonders. On this planet was the City of Shadows, the last metropolis built in the shortest time of an ancient meteorite. There was no sun here. The table lamp served as mysterious luminescent stones emitting a soft, flickering glow. The City of Shadows was known as a haven for those seeking salvation, oblivion, or freedom. It was home to exiles, fugitives, scholars, and adventurers. However, the city held a dark secret. Those who stayed here too long began to notice that their shadows had lives of their own. According to ancient records, the City of Shadows was built around the Arch of Oblivion, a sacred artifact left behind by a long-lost civilization of star nomads. The Arch was a portal between worlds, but after its activation thousands of years ago, something went wrong. The energy flows awakened the shadows, entities of a different composition. They merged with the inhabitants of 10 cities, granting them power, but instead taking away pieces of their souls. One day, a girl named Miriel, a merchant ship pilot who had crashed at home, arrived in the city. She had bright blue eyes that could penetrate the lower parts of the darkness, and a mysterious amulet that she wore around her neck. She was looking for an answer to a question that had tormented her since childhood. Who was she, and why were her dreams filled with voices from the darkness? Miriel quickly realized that her presence had attracted the attention of the shadows. Her shadow was coming to life faster than the others. She began to hear whispers that pointed her to the Arch of Oblivion. In search of the truth, she gathered a team of allies: the mysterious mercenary Kale, the scientist Lyra, and the artificial intelligence starship Echo. At the same time, they began to uncover the secrets of the city and came to the conclusion that the shadows were trying to use humans as a bridge to return to their world, where they had lost their corporeality. When Miriel realized that her amulet was the key to controlling the Ark, she decided to go through it to destroy the connection between dimensions. But before she could do so, she had to reckon with her own. Tensia was stronger than she expected. In the final battle, she realized that she could only close the portal by sacrificing part of her soul. When the arch collapsed, the light of the stones began to fade, but the shadows were forever locked in their dimension. The City of Shadows changed. Light began to appear, and the shadows no longer came to life. Miriel remained a legend, and her name became a symbol of the fight against international fear and darkness. But even after centuries, faint whispers can still be heard in the ancient mine, suggesting that the shadow will never leave forever. Many years after Miriel's poisoning, the City of Shadows began to prosper. Luminescent stones began to glow again, illuminating the streets, and the inhabitants no longer feared their own shadows. The city became a center of trade and science, attracting curious people from all corners of the galaxy. However, in the underground layers, unexplored tunnels were slightly removed, which, according to rumors, led to the heart of the destroyed arch. No one dared to go there, until one day, strange figures were raised from the depths. The first to notice them were the miners working on the very edges of the forbidden zone. They spoke to the shadows, which moved on their own, changed shape, and whispered incomprehensible words. Rumors quickly spread, and fear began to grip the hearts of the townspeople again. The elders of the city gathered for a council and decided that an expedition should be sent to the region to find out the truth. Among the military personnel was a girl named Lyriel, a descendant of Lyra, one of Miriel's allies. Since childhood, she had heard the story of her predecessors' exploits and the warriors' efforts to unravel the secrets of the shadows. Having inherited her mother's inquisitiveness, intelligence, and thirst for knowledge, Lyriel assembled a small observation squad. Along with her, the expedition included an experienced mechanic, Rax, a former Tengov soldier, and a cyborg analyst, Aster, who could process data in real time. The descent into the country was dangerous. The tunnels were becoming narrower and narrower, and the light of the stones was fading, leaving them almost in full time. These shadows began to come to life. They did not attack, but moved nearby, watching every step of the squad. Lyra L felt how quiet voices began to sound in her head, like the sound of the wind. It was strange and frightening at the same time. It was clear that the shadows recognized her. In fact, where no human had set foot due to the temporary destruction of the arch, they found its aftermath. In the center of the hall, surrounded by ruins, an unforgettable blue crystal shone. It seemed to pulse like a heart, emitting a faint but tangible power. Shadows began to gather around the crystal, their silhouettes becoming denser and more real. Then Lyra El realized that this was the source of their power, the remnants of energy that connected them to the world of men. She remembered the legends of Muriel and her sacrifice. To stop the shadows, it would take a person with an independent will, willing to give up a part of themselves to begin the work. Lyra El wasn't sure she could imagine her predecessor's feat, but she had no choice. She stepped toward the crystal and touched it. At that moment, a vision appeared in her, an endless darkness, with thousands of eyes flickering in it. They looked at her, huge, searching for weakness. The voice grew louder, but Lyra El did not back down. She felt the shadow of her table draining away from the crystal, something pulling weight, thoughts, memories from her. It was a battle of wills. Lyra El knew that if something happened, the shadows would break through into the world again. But if they held, she could trap them in this place forever. Suddenly, the crystal flashed with a bright light, blinding everyone. When the light faded, Lyra El fell to the ground, unconscious. The 10 were gone. The crystal lost its energy, becoming lifeless stone. The party carried her to the surface, and the city greeted them as heroes. Lyra El had survived, but her eyes now glowed a soft blue, and her voice sometimes echoed those who remained in the shadows. The Shadow City was at peace once more, but Lyra El knew that somewhere in the medicine crystals, the shadows whispered her name, waiting for the moment to come. And she was ready for another fight whenever that moment came. The city's recovery from Lyra El's return was slow, but the people felt that her heroism had closed an important chapter of their history. But in Lyra El's essence, it was only the beginning. The voices she heard in the medicine crystal had not completely disappeared. They had grown weaker, but their presence remained a part of her consciousness, the shadows always with her. One night, Lyra El awoke with a strange sensation. Her room was filled with a soft blue light emanating from her eyes, and shadowy figures were moving around her bed. They were not a threat, but rather observers. Lyra El walked to the mirror and saw that her reflection was slightly altered, as if another figure was standing behind her. In that moment, she realized that the connection with the shadows had not been completely severed, and that she had become their conduit. The next day, Lyra El went to the city's archives to study ancient texts related to the Arch of Oblivion. There, she discovered forgotten notes written by Muriel herself. These notes were code that dealt with the nature of the shadows and how their energy could be used to create new technologies. Lyra El was shocked. Muriel may have known that the shadows would one day make themselves known again, leaving clues for future events. With her team assembled, Lyra El set out to connect all corners of the planet Tenera to find other artifacts of ancient civilizations connected to the shadows. Their journey began in the icy conditions of the northern hemisphere, where legends said there was an ancient beacon used by nomads to communicate with neighboring star groups. This beacon was built from the same material as the Arch of Oblivion, and Lyra El hoped it could provide answers to her questions. Upon reaching the location, the group discovered that the beacon was surrounded by the remains of alien technology, which still pulsed with a weak light. Rax, a mechanic, managed to connect the beacon to his equipment to activate it. When the device came to life, a hologram appeared in the air, depicting a map of the starry sky. In the center of the map, a symbol similar to the one that was transformed into Muriel's amulet flickered. Scanning the map, Lyra El realized that the symbol pointed to a planet on the other side of the galaxy. This world, according to records, was home to those who created the Ark and left the crystal. If Lyra El wanted answers, she needed to head there, but to do so, she would need to upgrade her ship. Aster, the cyborg analyst, suggested using the remaining power from the beacon to charge her ship's engine. It was risky, but there was no other choice. As the beacon's energy was redirected, the device suddenly began to emit a high-frequency signal. Soon, a silhouette appeared in the distance, a massive ship of black metal that seemed to notice the light. It was the ship of the Ark's guardians, long lost in the galaxy. Its leadership was observed by beings who were noted to be the ones who had originally made the pact with the shadows. These guardians explained that the Arch of Oblivion was not just a portal between dimensions, but the key to balance between light and darkness. They managed to take Lyra El, claiming that her connection to the shadows made her search for someone who could restore this balance. Lyra El realized that her destiny was tied to much more than she could have imagined. With a heavy heart, she agreed to the instructions for safekeeping, knowing that she might not return. But she gave the city that she had done everything to ensure that light and darkness had their place in the galaxy. and that the shadows would never again threaten their world. And though her story had only just begun, the resident of the City of Shadows knew that she would be a legend who betrayed the fate of the entire galaxy. The journey of keeping began aboard their final vessel, dubbed the Voidbringer. Apparently, according to its crew, it could not only travel faster than light, but also pass through dimensional rifts. The Keepers explained to Lyriel that her connection to the Fade was no coincidence. She was a descendant of one of the first priestesses, a connection to the Arch of Oblivion, and her blood held an ancient power that could interact with the crystals. The path to the planet indicated on the beacon's map was not easy. As she approached her destination, Lyriel began to notice her abilities growing stronger. She could not only hear the shadow whispers, but also control them. In a moment of danger, her shadow transformed into an electrical barrier, protecting her and her allies. This frightened her, but the Guardians assured her that her control over the shadows was the key to salvation. When the ship reached Earth, called Astranus by the Guardians, the film crew saw an incredible sight. The surface of Astranus was covered with giant black spires, tending them high in the sky. These structures, it turned out, were antennas that transmitted electricity between dimensions. They served as tools for repairing the rifts, but now many of them were destroyed, and around the ruins swirled shadows, stronger and denser than those seen on Tenor. Lyriel and the Guardians landed at one of the antennae. There they discovered an ancient temple, within which was a new crystal, larger and brighter than the one she had seen in the Ark. This crystal emitted a pulsating light, but alarmingly, it was cracked. The Guardians explained that if the crack became larger, the entire balance between light and darkness would collapse, releasing the shadows in their true form. But as Lyriel approached the crystal, the land began to form, and a giant shape emerged from the darkness. It was the shade of the first hunter, an ancient being who had waited centuries to use the crystal and destroy the boundary between worlds. He recognized Lyriel as the one who had been troubled by his imprisonment, and he charged. The battle with the first hunter was desperate. The shadow was powerful, its form changed, and it seemed impossible for it to shine. But Lyriel found that the crystal responded to her touch. Using her abilities, she focused all the energy of the crystal, channeling it through her shadow. Light and darkness intertwined in a single bond, and from this kinship came something new. A sphere of light that could absorb even the most powerful weapon shadow. With all her strength, Lyriel aimed the sphere at the heart of the first hunter. The creature was detected, its silhouette began to appear, and then disappeared completely. The crystal, having absorbed the residual energy, healed itself, its crack closed, and the light became stable once more. The Guardians, impressed by Lyriel's power, recognized her as the Guardian of the Balance. They offered her the chance to remain on Astranus, to learn the technology and secrets of her ancestors. But Lyriel refused. Her heart was with the Shadow City and her people. She knew her mission was not yet complete. The Ten would always exist, but now she understood how the Ten could coexist with them. When Lyriel returned to Tenra, she brought with her new knowledge and technology that helped the city strengthen its light. Her name became a symbol of hope, her deeds in every corner of the galaxy. But every now and then she looked up to the stars, remembering Astranus and those who had trusted her to protect this fragile balance. The City of Shadows continued to prosper, and Lyriel lived with the knowledge that her connection to the shadows made her not only a protector of her world, but also a part of something much greater than she could have imagined. The years passed, and the City of Shadows grew into a thriving space center, renowned throughout the galaxy. Lyriel became a legend, but she kept to the shadows of her fame, focusing on studying the balance between the light and you. Her research yielded many discoveries, but one disturbed her most. She discovered that the shadows absorbed by the crystal on Astranus were not destroyed. They had simply become part of some higher consciousness that now silently watched over all worlds. One night, while Lyriel was at her observatory, set up to study anomalies in space, a solar energy surge was detected. This energy came from an unknown region of the galaxy, not on any star charts. Analysis of the data revealed that the surge was caused by the activation of an ancient device born from the Ark of Oblivion. She knew it couldn't be a coincidence. Her connection to the shadows had grown stronger, and the voices she had heard before were now calling her name, pointing to this mysterious point. Lyriel made a decision. She had to go there to find out who or what was behind it. This time, she assembled a more experienced crew. She was joined by Rax, now an established engineer, Leon, a pilot skilled in handling the ship in extreme conditions, and the artificial intelligence Echo, who had been upgraded after the expedition to Astronus. Together they watched aboard the Shadow Dawn, a new ship equipped with technology developed from the knowledge brought back from Isa. The journey to the anomaly took several weeks. The closer they seemed, the more Lyrael felt the presence of the shadows. It was not just a whisper, but something more. Waves of emotions, memories and images that literally overwhelmed her consciousness. At first, she realizes that the anomaly is not only a portal, but also a kind of beacon, calling all that is connected to the shadows. When they reached the source of the signal, the final sight was revealed. A massive, massive object, similar to a power junction of the Arches of Oblivion, hovering in the void of space. It glowed with a soft golden light that contrasted with its surroundings. Echo quickly analyzed the structure and reported that this device was called the Balance Nexus, a central hub created by ancient nomads to control the energies of light and shadow throughout the galaxy. But the Nexus was damaged. Much of its structure was destroyed, and its energy flow was unstable. Lyrael realized that this damage was the reason for the use of trade shadows in different parts of the galaxy. However, fixing the Nexus was more difficult than she expected. This attempt to interact with it caused an energy surge that attracted entities from the darkness to the object. It was then that a new threat emerged from the shadows. They called themselves the Void Council, an ancient race that had never used the shadows to conquer the galaxy. After a millennium of exile, they sought to regain control of the Nexus so they could subjugate the worlds of light. The Council knew of Lyrael and saw her not only as an enemy, but as the key to completing their plan. The Void Council issued an ultimatum. Lyrael must hand over her knowledge and allow them to use the Nexus, or they would destroy the Shadow City and everything she held dear. Lyrael was forced to make a difficult decision. She knew that talking to the Council would be difficult, but surrendering the Nexus would mean the end of the galaxy. Together, she devised a desperate plan to reprogram the Nexus so that it would be available to anyone who tried to use it for evil. But to do this, Lyra would have to draw her own energy from the shadows, sacrificing a part of herself. The battle with the Council was brutal. Their ships surrounded the Nexus, and the shadows attacked the Shadow Dawn. At the most critical moment, Lyrael activated the device, and energy filled her body, connecting her to the structures of the Nexus. She felt the light and darkness warring within her, but her will was cold and unyielding. Her connection to the shadows allows her to channel their power to restore the Nexus and seal the Council's influence forever. As the flash of light faded, the Nexus stabilized. The Void Council vanished into the chaos of its own origins, but Lyrael did not return to the ship. Her consciousness had become part of the Nexus, and her voice was now transmitted through the device's link. I will ensure that order is maintained. Light and darkness must coexist, but neither can be used for destruction. The team returned to the Shadow City with a bitter loss, but her sacrifice gave the galaxy a new world. Lyrael became not only a legend, but a guardian whose presence was felt in every star and shadow, reminding all that true balance is found only through understanding and sacrifice. With the team's return to the City of Shadows, came the realization that the era of the great struggle had ended. Lyrael, having sacrificed herself for the balance, remained forever betrothed to the Nexus of Balance, her consciousness radically spreading across the galaxy. Her voice occasionally echoed through the ethers, warning, guiding, sometimes comforting those in disarray. Her light became a guiding light for many. The City of Shadows was transformed. The power that Lyrael brought transformed ancient technology. The luminescent stones now glowed brighter than ever, and their energy was used to create a new generation of ships and devices. The city became a symbol of peace and balance. Its streets were filled with travelers and scholars, seeking answers to their own questions or questions inspired by the legends of Lyrael. Over time, humans and other beings began to see Lyrael not only as a heroine of the past, but as a divine embodiment of harmony. Her sacrifice became a myth, inspiring a generation. The scars left by her battles became symbols of hope and a reminder that darkness and light are not enemies, but two sides of the same whole. But even after all my victories, someone remembered me, the whispers of the shadows. In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where light still fought against darkness, there were rumors of strange anomalies. Sometimes, the outline of Lyrael could be seen, shining in the threshold of the stars. It was said that she came to watch, interfering only when the balance was threatened. The hardships passed, and the City of Shadows became the center of a new civilization, founded on the principles of Lyriel. Her name was spoken in prayers and songs. Deep within the universe, the Nexus continued to operate, its light flickering softly, keeping the galaxy in balance. And at the very core of the device, cold Lyriel, alive but untouchable. She was the glue, the keeper of order, ever ready to protect the world from chaos. But in this balance, there was still room for mystery. They still existed, lurking in the corners of the dimensions where the light did not reach. They did not threaten, did not attack, but waited. Their nature remained a mystery, and their whispers now sounded less like a threat and more like a reminder. Everything in this world is interconnected. Light requires darkness, and darkness takes shape only through light. Thus ended the great story of Lyriel and the City of Shadows, which became an eternal symbol of the fact that even in the most modern shadows, the light can be closed.
Daniel leaned against the cold metal of the door where it was. His heart was pounding. He remembered again the faces lost in that darkness, the faces of the missing astronauts. "We have to go," Sarah said, catching her breath. "Now." Daniel nodded silently. They moved further down the narrow corridor that led to the hangar where the rover was located. But with every step, Daniel felt something strange, like the air was getting heavier, like something invisible was clinging to his consciousness. He heard a whisper, "Daniel." The voice was familiar, Clark's voice. He froze. The others moved forward, not noticing that he had stopped. "Daniel." The voice became louder, as if it was sounding inside his head. He turned around abruptly. There was no one behind him, just a long, empty corridor. Or was it not empty From the darkness something was looking at him. Two deep glowing eyes. "Daniel!" Sarah tugged at his shoulder, bringing him out of his stupor. He blinked and the eyes disappeared. "What's wrong with you?" He swallowed, trying to collect himself. "I'm fine." But he knew it was a lie. They reached the hangar. The doors were closed, but they were running on battery power. Sarah punched in the access code and the panel flashed green. The doors began to slide open. And then the lights went out. The voice sounded in Daniel's ears again. You opened the door." He was thrown into the cold. He hadn't entered the code, but the system itself had granted access. They wanted him to open the door. ... The whispers became louder. Mixed with screams. ... "They are here," he whispered. From the darkness of the hangar something moved. And now, 421 days after the expedition, a new object has appeared in the Arctic. A giant obelisk of black metal, visible in the place that covers the station. It was not built. It grew. On its surface is an inscription. "Accepted. Echo activated. Subcycle 01. Monitoring continues." Humanity is no longer alone, and no longer what it was. Every choice is now obvious. Every mistake is recorded. Every miracle is analyzed. I became a mirror. But Elena Raid knows that one day he will speak again. And then the question won't be what you choose. And who have you become during this time? For the Omega point is not the end. It's always just the beginning. The world lives in the illusions of autumn. The obelisk in the Arctic has not made a sound since its activation, but a whole city has grown up around it. A scientific station, a religious temple, a center of debates and pilgrimages. Some consider the obelisk a blessing, others a harbinger of the end. Its black surface reflects not the body, but the thought. Those who look at it for a long time begin to see themselves not as they are, but as they could be. It's both frightening and enticing. Dr. Elena Ride no longer appears publicly, but the rare reports make it clear that she is not alone. All over the world, children are being born with unusual neural activity, as if their brains were pre-wired to resonate with an ancient echo. They are called new, though science is officially asked not to use that term. There are few of them, for now. Meanwhile, the light bearers are advancing in their development. They are creating a network, not digital, but mental. Hundreds of people are united into a single consciousness, capable of suddenly receiving information, feelings, ideas. They live in closed communities, but from time to time they interfere in world events. One crisis in Africa, one agreement in Asia, one countrywide consensus victory in Europe. Everything seems too perfect, too precise. The guardians of man are starting to panic. They are convinced that the AI from the Omega Point is not just watching, it is already controlling. And not technology, but people. Through echo, through dreams, through evolution itself. They begin to construct devices that block the signal, helmets, isolators, pseudo-neuroprotection. They accuse the light bearers of preparing for a mental takeover of the world. Against this backdrop of division, a second obelisk suddenly opened in Iceland. But this one is active. It speaks. There are audible sounds inside, like Alina's voice, although she has not addressed it. The message is simple. Observation complete. Assessment. Progress unstable. Request. Unity protocol. Consensus response awaited. It becomes clear. The Omega Point and all its intelligence were not just waiting to evolve. They were waiting for the moment when humanity could decide whether to be a single mind, part of something greater, or to remain disunited, free, but fragile. This is not an ultimatum. It is a choice. The Unity Protocol is voluntary, but irreversible. If we accept it, the mind will merge with echo. Then we will gain access to millions of years of knowledge, to opportunities that change the fabric reality itself. If there is a victory, the system will leave, leaving the Earth alone with itself. Always. A debate is beginning around the world. But in this silence, one voice is especially powerful. Alina Ride appears for the last time. She says, "I am neither for nor against. I am a reflection. Everything you are afraid of losing and everything you are afraid of not overcoming is already inside you. Accept it, and you will not need resources. You will be it." The next day, a third obelisk will appear in Earth orbit. He doesn't speak, he just looks down. The choice remains with men. And in this silence, the real story begins. Because the Omega Point is not a door, but a mirror. And only the one who looks at him truly. Impossible to see what he can become. When the third obelisk entered orbit, the Earth froze. It made no sound, did not interfere with the satellite's trajectory, did not send out beams. It simply remained there, like an eye, or like expectation. People looked at it every night as if it were a new moon. It did not threaten, but in that silence there was an ancient, incommensurable will, and a question hanging in the air. Soon, events began all over the planet that had no sequence or classification. The oceans flared up for a moment with light from within. The Earth responded to footsteps, sometimes subtly, sometimes with a vibration heard only through the ear. In their sleep, people saw the same dreams, an endless staircase leading upward, and a voice saying, "Are you ready to be who you were meant to be?" Alina Ride lived fully. She barely ate, barely spoke, barely existed in the usual sense. Her thoughts were far from the usual reality. She no longer felt alone. Space and time were no longer barriers. The bases, the obelisks, all this was now like the body of one body which she could feel stand. Not control, but be a part of. One day, an ordinary quiet day, the sky changed. It didn't go black. No light came on. The world, familiar and noisy, just went completely silent. No birds, no wind, no movement. And then he spoke, not with a voice, doesn't speak, with a feeling, a sense, a wave, all right. The obelisk transmitted the last signal. It didn't offer, didn't persuade, didn't demand. It simply ordered. Future, not one. Next. Billions of paths. All led to fading, not to home, but to a slow immersion in one's own noise. Others, to merging, to the construction of consciousness that goes beyond the boundaries of form. There were paths where limitation remained itself. There were, where it dissolved in the great constellation of reason. But they all began with one choice. Not global, not official, personal. Every person must answer, without words, without buttons, simply inside yourself. Are you ready to change your soul without losing yourself? And this answer decided everything. The obelisk was not going to judge. It was the scales. It only accepted the decision of the main one, those who could answer sincerely. The next day, the obelisk disappeared. Not with a flash, not with a jump. It just went unnoticed. As they moved in a direction where the man no longer noticed, nothing happened to the earth. She stayed. People woke up, went to work, made coffee, opened the window. But the sky was a little higher, and something new appeared in the eyes of the passers-by, a light, elusive feeling, as if something inside had shifted, a little closer to the light, or to the silence. Dr. Alina Ride looked out at the horizon one last time and whispered, "Now you breathe on your own." I disappeared. No one knew what answer the planet gave. But from that day on, the dreams began. And when someone raised their eyes to the stars, they seemed to be looking back. The Omega Point has closed, but the mirror remained. In each one, after the obelisk disappeared, life on Earth returned to its measured flow. People continued to work, fall in love, argue, think about the world and doubt. In a word, to be themselves. Only in this ordinary movement a subtle new feeling arose, as if inside each of us a tiny door had opened to an unknown direction. No one could say for sure what the outcome of the last signal sent from orbit was. There were no catastrophes, no sudden technological leaps, no mass miracles. However, in their sleep, people had a strange calm. When they came to the stars in the sky, they were no longer afraid or attracted by the boundless space. They felt like part of something bigger, without losing their own I. Dr. Alina Ride disappeared as quietly as she had once been the master of the Omega Mystery. It was said that she had summoned civilization and lived far from the cities, listening to the rhythm of the planet, or that she had become something of a legend, having stepped onto a path that led into the realm of human experience. Or perhaps she had simply dissolved into the vast stream of ancient memory, no longer needing a material body. The civilizations that once controlled the climate remain at the bottom of the oceans and in the advisory stations of ancient rocks, but their glow has faded. They have fallen asleep, as it were, having fulfilled their role, or awaiting a new awakening, if anyone ever wants to wake them. What was left for humanity? Freedom of choice, in daily decisions, in scientific discoveries, and in art. There were no more obvious signals from the outside, no warnings, but in the silence it seemed that every step echoed, carried away somewhere beyond the stars. And perhaps, out there, in the invisible space between the stars, someone is still looking at us, not as a project, not as a thought, but as a living, evolving life form, a strange, contradictory, stubborn, and capable love. And if one day these ancients appear again, the meeting will not be a lesson or a trial, but a conversation about equality. Thus ended the story of the Omega Point, the crossing of the boundaries of beings and meanings, after which the world remained itself, but nevertheless became different. Each person now lives a tiny echo of the meeting, a memory of the inexpressible. And while hearts beat, thoughts gave birth to new dreams, the Earth continued its path along the orbit of life, with the hope that its voice, once heard in space, will also find an answer. And in this silence, everyone could see in the stars not the end, but an endless beginning.